Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Marie Funk. I'm a PhD student at the University of Victoria in the Department of English and the Cultural, Social, and Political Thought program. And this is my presentation and conference paper on Endocode, Boundary Collapse in the Endocrine System for the New Materialist Informatics Conference 2021. And before I begin this recorded version of my presentation, I just want to still give a land acknowledgement. This is a common practice in Canada to give land acknowledgements to the various traditional Indigenous territories on which we live and research. So I am a settler on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people, which includes the Sanghees, the Esquimalt, and Wasanic people. This land is called Victoria under the geopolitical boundaries of colonial power. And it's important for me to recognize this historical context, not just when talking about collapsing geopolitical boundaries designed to erase Indigenous peoples, but also when thinking about the biopolitical boundaries and reproductive politics that are in play in this erasure. And I say this keeping in mind that Canada's colonial governance has a long history of killing, raping, and sterilizing Indigenous women to control populations, noting that the most recent reporting of a forced sterilization of an Indigenous woman in Canada is as recent as 2018, and that's just 3 years ago. So this is part of the colonial context from which I'm coming from when I'm situated on this land. The other point of context that I'm approaching this topic from is one of personal health. I have a 5mm benign tumor in my pituitary gland that disrupts my production of hormones like luteinizing hormone, or LH, and estrogen. I didn't know this when I began this project, but I did know that I don't menstruate and I don't ovulate. And so sort of going through the production of Endocode and the project that I get to with No Ovum Organum has been part of this personal health journey that has helped me figure out what exactly is going on in my own body. So as I sort of alluded to there, what follows here is an autoethnographic study of the way hormones, and in this case, my hormones, become mediated and remediated into informatic systems that are inherently biopolitical in the way that they reaffirm the human body as a closed loop system, one that is individual and responsible for its own normalcy or typicality, else the body is considered disabled. So I start with an AI-enabled Mira fertility tracker, and this becomes my object of study. And it's the example of biometric remediation that I'll be looking at and resisting. And my resistance is a response with No Ovum Organum. It is a physical computing project comprised of a hacked Mira device and an interactive narrative platform. And thus, this project attempts to collapse the boundaries between the embodiment and informatics by challenging what and how we measure when we measure hormones across bodies and across ecologies. So what is Mira? Well, as I've already said, Mira is an AI-enabled fertility tracker that measures LH concentration in urine and predicts when in an ovulation cycle the user will be most fertile. So it's for heterosexual couples predominantly who are trying to conceive. When the device is taken apart, it's clear that it's comprised of photosensors that read qualitative and analog data off of the wands that are the same as the ovulation test strips that you can buy at a drugstore. It then uses machine learning to predict future peaks and cycles. The device retails for about $300 US dollars, and each pack of 20 wands cost an extra 85 US dollars. So for comparison, you can buy 50 ovulation test strips for $7 online, where I am, if you just sort of search through large online retailers. However, it is hard to find brands that haven't added a digital component to their tests when you go in person into drugstores. And that is because there's this sort of need to compete with the digitization and the quantification of the smart devices coming out of Silicon Valley. So Mira is a device that mediates and it remediates embodied processes into a binary of ability or disability, fertility or infertility. And of course, my body is always falling into the latter of those categories, as I found out. And just quickly, for the text on these images, if you're having trouble reading them, this is a screen capture from Mira.com. And the steps that they outline on their website are: step 1, dip the test wand into urine for 10 seconds. Expect to test 10 to 20 times per cycle. This will depend on your body's unique rhythm. Step 2, insert the wand into the Mira analyzer. Your fertility hormone concentration results will automatically sync with the Mira app after approximately 16 minutes of analysis. And step 3, the Mira app's advanced algorithm will provide highly accurate and personalized information about your fertility window. So I'm just going to go over how to read some of these slides. Most of these slides are formatted in a way that mirrors my project No Ovum Organum's narrative and its interface, as you'll see in actually the next slide. I'll do a demo. So under the slide title, there's, you'll find on the left-hand side, the LH concentration level in international units per liter as measured by Mira. Then in the center here, there's the Mira's qualification that the device gives every time you measure. So those can range from be anywhere between none, low, medium, and high. I myself always fell into the none level or the very, very low end of the low level. And then finally, on the right-hand side, we have the date on which I measured. In the summer of 2019, I measured 30 times once every 3 days from July 30th to July 1st to September 27th. So through the 3 months of July, August, and September of 2019. And underneath them, I have a narrative moment, which distinguishes the interactive narrative from what I would call just the mere bioarchival information. This is where I qualify the quantified measurements from Mira. And in this slide, which is from my second day of measuring, July 4th, I have a quote from Francis Bacon's Novum Organum, the text from which the scientific method and our reliance on empiricism through the mechanical aid of instruments derives. And this is also, of course, the origin for my title, for my response to Mira, No Ovum Organum. So that's my little pun. And as a science and technology studies scholar, I'm not necessarily critiquing empiricism, but I am responding to this onto-epistemological position from which the mechanical aid of biometric measurements in these smart devices turn qualitative embodied experience into this sort of stagnated moment of quantitative data, encoding the flesh entirely as a system of informatics. And this isn't especially surprising for endocrinology, as endocrinology as a medical field has come out of and co-evolved with the cybernetic era. It's a particularly modern medicine, and it is a distinctly cybernetic medicine. And this is made clear by the way that we talk about hormonal mechanisms as functions of signals and receptors, feedback loops, and sort of when you go deeper, you start to learn more about remediating cascade effects of particular hormones whose only function is to essentially remediate into new hormones as the body's gland produces other and different hormones. And we see this language in medical journals in the 1960s, or at least as early as the 1960s and into the 21st century. So a 2006 journal published in the European Journal of Endocrinology by Frick and co-authors is entitled Cybernetic Principles in the Systematic Concept of Hypothalamic Feeding Control. So this, this research reminds us that endocrinology still maintains that the hormonal body be understood as a sort of clean and regulated system of information, at least when it is functioning correctly. But I challenge the cybernetic model of endocrinology and its presumption of ending with the endo, that is, ending with the internal secretion. I challenge the presumptions that endocrinology is a system of regulation exclusive to the flesh body, the human flesh body or the animal flesh body, when in fact we leak, ooze, secrete, we lose all these hormones through networks of affect at every moment. And endocrinology is not just an individually embodied experience. Rather, I suggest that the boundaries of hormonal bodies collapse as endocrinology inevitably becomes exocrinology, externalized, which must be seen not just as a system of biochemical regulation, but as a system of affect. We see this when Preciado takes us through the ritual of applying testo gel in Testo Junkie. We see this in news reports of, your everyday local fish population affected by an increase of estrogen from excreted birth control pills, right? And we see this when governments surgically and chemically sterilize racialized populations across the world, Canada inclusive. So no ovum organum acts as a response to today's smart biometric devices and their cybernetic origins as it reorients the body out of this sort of myth of the closed human system and flesh boundaries. No ovum organum tells a different story that aims to break those boundaries down. So here is a demo. All right, so that is how no ovum organum works. For the rest of this presentation, I am just going to share some more of the narrative of no ovum organum. So where do you keep your hormones? I keep some on the shelf next to my bed. I've left liters of them in medical labs. Others I flush down the toilet to make the fish gay. I gave you some when I kissed you. I took some of yours when we fucked. You know, same as everyone else. In cybernetic language, such perfect regulation is called homeostasis, a closed loop control system. But this is a lie. This is an open system. Endocrinology becomes exocrinology. We leak, we ooze, we secrete into each other's bodies, into each other's worlds, until these boundaries no longer matter. Only matter matters. Your hormones are mine, mine yours. All hormones are reproductive hormones, generative and vital.